Good morning. Good morning, Steph. How are you today?
Hi Vicky, I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, very well, thank you. It's lovely to see you this morning. I can see the sun shining in through the back there for us today.
Yeah, it's a lovely day.
It does, always makes it feel better, doesn't it, when the sun is shining outside?
It does, yeah.
So I'm delighted to have Steph Davis here with me this morning, Head of Housing at Broadland Housing, who's one of the participants of the Eastern Leaders programme. And Steph's with me today to tell us a little bit more about her experience on the programme. So thank you very much for joining us today, Steph. So first, just to kick us off, could you tell us a little bit more about you and a little bit more about Broadland Housing?
Yeah, so as you've said, I'm Head of Housing at Broadland Housing. Broadland Housing is a traditional housing association. We cover Norfolk and North Suffolk, just over 5,000 homes, and really traditional housing associations set up in the 60s. I started Broadland in 1997, which seems like a very long time ago. It's gone really quickly. And I actually started there as a temp in the finance team. Yeah, used to kind of do the internal post and things, and worked my way up through to housing officer and team leader and manager, and then to head of housing where I am now. So didn't choose a career in housing, but wouldn't have chosen anything else. Glad I found it.
I've heard that many times. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
chosen a career in housing, but now actually I wouldn't be anywhere else.
No, exactly.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks for sharing that with us. So just then moving on to the programme, what was it that made you pick the Eastern Leaders programme from all of the options that you did have available to you?
Yeah, so I think, it's no secret I've been at Broadland a long time, and I've been heavily invested in as an organisation, been through lots of training, and I've done my professional qualification. And I guess for me, it was trying to find the next thing that was right for me right now. And I think that can be quite difficult. And particularly when maybe you're looking at your next step up, and how you gain that experience. And I think to a degree you can do that in your own organization. You can learn from those, who are in positions, above you. But I think that it's really important to get experience and meet people outside of where you work, outside of your organization. And that was something I was really, really keen to do, and learn how other organizations work. And I felt that this would offer me the chance to do that. And I think it was the flexibility of the course. So I think I had conversations really early on with Greenacre, when I heard about the course. I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. I wonder if that would be right for me. And had conversations, and really just wanted to make sure that it would give me what I needed. And that sounds quite selfish, but I think, training is investment. It's money being spent, and whether that's you investing on yourself or your organization, you need to spend that wisely. So it was really, really those conversations about, would it give me what I want? Is it right for me? Is this the right thing? And Greenacre were open to those conversations. So very unusual, before doing any course or any training program, that you help to shape what you're going to learn. And I know that Greenacre felt really strongly that, the participants got that opportunity as well. And it filled a gap for me, really. I think in terms of, there were lots of things that I really wanted to experience. And I think for me, because I was able to say, oh, I really need to do this and this and this, and not everything. You can't make a course right for everyone on it. But for me to say, these are the key things that I really feel I need, and for that to be listened to, and for that to be incorporated into the course, I think really that's why it was right for me, and that's why I chose it.
Thanks, Steph. So it sounds like having that opportunity to partake and get involved in the content and what it would look like for you was really important.
Yeah, it really was. And how often do you get to do that? You go on a course, and you get to help shape the course objectives at the beginning on a day course or a 2-day course. But how often do you really get to input and say, this is what I need to learn? And that was a theme throughout, and I'll talk about that. That didn't stop at the beginning of the course. That was a theme throughout the course, I felt.
Thanks, Steph. So what part then of the programme would you say has really stood out for you?
So a few things, really. I can never just choose one. So I think the flexibility was, and I talked about that early on, but I think even into the course that continued, and good example of that was one of the things that we were tasked with doing on the course was coming up with a kind of project piece of work, and that was due to be delivered I suppose about halfway through the course originally, but with what's happened and, you know, current times and things, I think participants felt really strongly that actually that wasn't the right time to deliver that piece of work, and actually people felt they needed more time, and you know, they felt that it would be better to be done later on in the course, and those conversations were had. So, you know, went to Dan and Greenacre and said, actually, you know, this isn't going to work like this. We think it would be better if we do this, and actually it was moved, and it was the right decision. And it was just really interesting that, you know, you can have those conversations even though you're on the course. So I think the flexibility of the course for me was, I think the effectiveness of doing it online. So I know it's easy to say, it's easy to do things online, and I get that to a degree. But I think a course where you're working quite closely with people, and in our smaller groups, we were working quite closely together. I think there is a thing about needing to kind of see each other and be in the same room as each other. And it didn't take from the experience for me. So I know that we're getting very used to things being done online, but it didn't. And I think particularly in the course, you do some small project work, so you work in your teams. And, you know, that's quite close knit, and you know, you're trying to gain trust in the people you're working with, and you know, talking about conversations and things about, you know, your leadership style and how you behave and things that are quite personal to you. And it didn't stop those relationships developing. The way in which it was done in those small groups really worked. So I was surprised at that, because I actually think that it can be difficult to get the right balance. And then the last thing really was the mixture of the smaller groups. So I worked in a small group of people, and I'm sure it was done deliberately, although I didn't realise till later on, is that we all had different backgrounds. So we all work in housing, but we all work in different parts of housing. And I've learned so much from the smaller group that I worked with. And we really did all bring something different. And I think that how that was organised was really, really good. It gave me that one thing I needed, particularly about being able to, you know, find out what other people do. And there was a moment in our groups where we did a masterclass, which was, you know, where we learned from other people. And at the end of the masterclass, I there was something I couldn't get it. I just couldn't get it. And the following week, we're in our small groups, we're doing some work, and I said I just didn't get that. And David, is in my group, went, do you know what? I'll show you how to do it. That's what I do. I can teach that to you, and we can go through it. And I thought, oh, that's just so valuable to be able to have that.
Thanks, Stephanie. Sort of hearing those three things there, that coming together in the smaller groups and how powerful that's been, particularly during a time like this, you know, mentioning that P word and the pandemic, and being able to really give you what you need in those smaller groups, the flexibility that surrounded that, and the fact that we were due to do this, of course, face to face, weren't we?
Yes.
Originally, the programme was going to be delivered face to face, so we've switched to online, of course, and we haven't had a choice in that yet. What I'm hearing is that's actually worked really well and has been just as effective as it would have been doing that face to face.
I think so. And I think, you know, even before the course started, you know, I had concerns about travelling during the day, and I had that concern. And, you know, I think that's always a concern, because you can't control roads and traffic, and, you know, you can't control that stuff. And I think it just took away that worry and that concern. And you know, I know a mixture of face to online is better, and of course that you'd do that if you could, but I just don't think it took anything away from it that it wasn't.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. So Steph, what would you say is a moment, or perhaps a tool, or even a conversation from the programme that you keep revisiting?
So I think there's two things. I think the first one is in the course itself, we undertook, I think they're called personality profiles. I think that's what they're called or referred to. And we used a different tool. So we used Facet5 to look at our leadership styles, and, you know, our behaviours, and our communication styles. And I've done quite a few of those, so probably 3 or 4 different ones. And I've never done Facet5. I've done kind of discovery and things. And every time that comes out with you kind of like, I don't know, sunshine yellow, kind of the social person who wants to be everywhere and talking to everyone and things like that. And it never quite resonated with me. So I do love people and I do love socializing and talking to people, but I'm quite a private person. So the personality profiles done in the past have never quite sat just right. And the facet 5 was different. It felt different. And it actually came back and said more of an introvert, but I have a really high caring for people, and it kind of all made sense, and I think I'd kind of been missing that because I think I wasn't too sure about previous ones. So for me, that worked really well because I was really confident that was saying, this is who you are and this is what you're doing, and it just rang true for me, which was really good because I think when you're kind of looking to develop, you need to do that from a place where actually you can resonate and do it. That's me. Yes, that is. And so that's given me that. And I think that it was really different in that it broke it down and it talked to you about if you want to progress and if you want to develop and go on to the next step and, an executive role, leadership role, these are the things that you might want to work on. And hadn't had that before. And that one page is so valuable. So I go back to that all the time and think, actually, where are the things that I need to work on and how can I work on those? Because it's not always easy to put these things into practice. So what opportunities do I need to work on that specific thing? And for me, again, I think it's the most valuable tool for me at this point in time and for what I'm looking to achieve. So I was really pleased about that, that it came out slightly differently and felt really much more comfortable. And then I think the other thing was I was in the team with small project team, and we were working on our project, a kind of bigger project piece of work that we've got to do before the end of the course. And it was probably our second or third session, and we kept coming together, and we're a group that now are very, very, very comfortable with each other, and there's total trust there and love, really. And kept coming back, we were talking about it, and it just got to a point where you could tell that no one was really kind of passionate about it. We're talking about this subject, going round and round. How about this? How about this? Thought we decided on something. Yeah, let's do some more work on it. And you could just tell. And I don't know if it was all of us or one of us, but felt able to come into the room that day and go, it's just not working. It's just not right. Something's not right. And rather to commit to it and go on with a group of people that relatively didn't know that well at the time, and for everyone to go, oh no, it's just not working, it's just not right, something's there. And then to spend like 10-20 minutes talking to each other, just generally, and then for one of our group told a story, just some random story from her career, and we all found something in that story that we really felt strongly about, and that story then inspired us to go on and do the piece of work that we did. And I think that it was just really, it's hard to come into a group of people and go, this isn't right, or I'm not feeling it. I think that's exactly what I said. I'm just not feeling it. It's not kind of setting the passion going. And actually everyone was feeling the same thing and everyone welcomed that, and it turned out for the better. So I think it was just really just acknowledging that, you can have those conversations, make those relationships. And it was just a point for me, because I would now not hesitate in saying something. And yeah, not kind of holding back and worrying about it, just feeling actually you can say it and then discuss it. And so it was a point for me that I come back to as well. That was another thing.
Well, those are great to hear. Like facet 5 and having facet 5 as a tool that you've just said there, that you keep coming back to, that you keep referring, which is really lovely. That it's not something that's kind of put to one side. It's there, and it's a constant for you that you keep going back to there, and that you've learned an awful lot from. And then having that conversation with your team and building up that trust within that group has enabled you to feel safe to be able to have a conversation and change what it sounds like, change direction from where you originally started.
Yeah, very much so. And you know, and that will happen. I think, you know, that's the thing, as you go into leadership roles or executive roles, you know, you know, at some point, you know, you are coming into a new team, and you will have to have those conversations. And, you know, I think that's, you don't have those conversations every day in your organization. You will do, but it's different with people that you don't know. So yeah, those two things really stuck with me. And as you said, the Facet 5 isn't in a drawer with all the other profiles. It's something I'm continually using. So again, it's an investment.
Great, fantastic. And what about your team, Steph? How has it made a difference in the way that you lead your team?
So I think I'm starting to use some of the tools. So we've learned loads and loads of tools, and I've bought loads and loads of books. So for anyone who does ever think about going on the course, I would just say Vicki has lots of recommendations, and yeah, my Amazon account is now lots and lots of books that I bought. But I think for me it was kind of we used lots of tools, and I think with any course, I think that's the really interesting thing. With any course, there are tools that you think, yes, I can't wait to use that one, and there's ones where you think, oh, I don't know when I'll use that, but that's fine. The fact is that you know about them when you choose to use them. I guess though, it started to, in terms of how it's developed me, I feel like I'm starting to ask different questions, if I'm honest. So there are things on the course where I've learned, and then I've gone back and spoken to people in our leadership teams and gone, oh, okay, so how do we do that, or how does that work here? Because we are learning all parts of the business, and obviously I work in housing mostly, and I you know have awareness of different parts of the business, and I interact with different parts of the business, but I, you know, wouldn't example know how does a finance director do that. I wouldn't know maybe that. So it's got me starting asking different questions, and joining up the dots. And yeah, so sometimes after a session I'll go message my manager, I need to ask you loads of questions, because I just need to think, how do other people do it, how does my organization do it? And then I'm learning from the people that I'm in the group with about how their organization's doing it. So it's joining up lots of dots. And yeah, I think I'm asking different questions, and I think I'm starting to think a bit differently as well.
And hearing about that importance there of learning, and actually learning never stops as a leader.
No.
You don't just do something and then you are the finished leader. It's an ongoing process, which is what you just said there. And it's really wonderful to hear that you've been asking questions, and those curious questions that we talk about around the organisation, and continuing that process of learning there.
And I think that's a really important thing. So I didn't come on this course thinking I'd do this course and then actually I'd apply for like a next roll up or anything. I wasn't, you know, thinking that would be the case. I was thinking, actually, this is another tool to help me get where I need to be, or look at where I want to be and find out where I want to be. And it's going to take more work on top of that. Even when the course is finished, it's going to take much more work, but it's an opportunity for me to then think about what I want. And yeah, it isn't that anyone's a finished product or anything at the end of the course. It's just, actually, this really will help me learn more about myself and other organizations, and yeah, lead me to think about what I want and what I need to do to get there. So yeah.
Great. And Steph, what would you say you have found the most challenging about the programme?
So there's a few things. So I think number one, and I don't want to kind of touch on it too much really, because it's happened to all of us. And I think I can't leave the pandemic out. So I think that's the first thing. I can't leave it out. And the reason I say that is just because of, you know, it was unknown to us, and we are all working differently. You know, we've all been in our roles and, you know, changed, you know, how we work, and, you know, there's things like homeschooling, etc. We've all had things to deal with, as well as do our role and our job. And I think when you throw a course on top of that, yeah, I'm not going to say it hasn't been challenging, because it has. And if I don't know, I would say, would I wish that I could have done it in another year? No, I don't think I do, because the online thing really worked for me. So I think there are pros and cons really, but I can't say that the timing wasn't difficult, because I think we were all struggling with lots of other things, and probably, you know, could have given it more if we weren't in a pandemic. I think there was one session we did as a group in one of our smaller groups with you, Vicki, and I think that whilst I love the group I worked in, it was role play, and it was a very tiny piece. It was probably half an hour of all the sessions we did. But I found that really uncomfortable because I just don't like role play. And yeah, and I had to do it, and it's good because it pushes me outside of my comfort zone. But I find role play difficult. And then I think the other thing was the project, the big joint project that we're doing. So in our small groups, we're doing this project, and I think for me, that was always going to be the thing that pushed me out of my comfort zone the most. And I've always wanted to do a course with one of these. So you see them advertised, you see these kind of, come together and do a research project. But they tend to be kind of longer, etc., and maybe aimed at people kind of newer in their roles, etc. But I've always thought it would be really interesting to work on a group project with people that I don't know, because that would really put me out of my comfort zone. And I think when you do work in your organizations or with people that you work with all the time, you make allowances for them, so you know them, you know their styles, you feel a bit more free with your opinions. I think coming together and working on a project over 12 months with a group of people that you don't really know, for me, that was just the most challenging thing. And I knew it would be. But it was really, really good. And actually, I can't believe that it's nearly finished. But we got to such a place where we were able to be honest, but be respectful, take into account each other's kind of strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, it was just really challenging, but it was really, really rewarding. So I'm so really pleased about that. And I just think really for me, I think what I'm seeing is kind of, I say leadership teams, and that's how we, in my organization where I work, that's how we refer to it, but executive teams, director teams. I think what I'm getting a sense of, and I hope this is the case, is that when you're working, those teams are working, that it's much more collaborative these days. So it's not directors, doing their own thing. Of course, they have their own areas of work, but it feels like, and certainly within our organisation, our leadership team are a group of people who work together. And I think that, and I hope that that's kind of the future of teams at that level. And so I think working on projects like this really does give you some experience. So when you go in and you need to do that again in other roles, you can reflect on what you've learned and how you've dealt with it. So yeah, for me, it was the most challenging thing, but it was something I was really looking forward to. But yeah, I was totally out of my comfort zone.
Thanks for sharing that stuff. And if I may just dive into that a little bit more, I'm just really curious about, of all the things that were challenging about that, what would you say was the most challenging for you?
I think, first of all, agreeing a subject, and I've talked about it a bit, but agreeing a subject that you all loved. So we wanted our project to be full of passion and everyone to feel the same. And over those 12 months, never fall out of the love with the subject that we chose. And that has been the case. We were talking the other day about how lucky we are that that's been the case. And then also come up with a piece of work that you're proud of, but actually that everyone feels like they've engaged with. So no one feels like they haven't had their say. No one feels like actually, there were things that they wanted to include, but they couldn't. No one feels like, someone took control and they didn't, get to play the part that they wanted to play. And I think that's such a kind of, I think it's such an achievement if you can get to a point where you get to the end of those 12 months, and as a group of people, and it's a small group of people, but that's why it works. I think as a small group of people say, yeah, we all played a role, we all took responsibility, we all felt included. I think that's a massive thing to achieve, because as I said, relative, these people are quite new to you. And so to get to the end of the project and for everyone in that group to be able to say, yeah, that for me was it, because I think that for me that's a huge measure of how we as a small team have developed, our relationship has developed, and just for us all really to say, that worked, and people feel more confident, they learn things. I think as a group that's a responsibility as a collective. So I guess to sum it up, I wouldn't have wanted just one or two people in that small group to achieve the outcomes they wanted. If everyone came out of it at the end and said, yes, proud of the piece of the work we did, and I got what I needed out of that piece of group work, I think that's a massive thing, because it was 12 months. I mean, it's, you know, it's a big chunk of time. And I think if I asked that question to the team I'm working with, I think we'd all be in agreement. So for me, that's the kind of fulfilling part, really, developing as a group as well as individuals.
So yeah, so really hearing there that importance of the collective and the importance there of inclusion, that everybody feels that they've been playing a part. And what I also heard you say there is actually taking the learning from that and being able to apply that back into the workplace when you're engaging with the teams there as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, coming back to that point that we all do different roles. So, you know, somebody from working in development, somebody working in finance, you know, we're all very different. We all had different things to bring. And I think, yeah, it's just really, really key. I always think that, you know, you go on courses and things and, you know, training, we all do throughout our careers. But I work in housing, so I've never gone to a finance conference, for example. I haven't. You know, you tend to stick to what you know. And I think because of that, your relationships, not everyone, but, you know, most of your relationships do center around that area of work. So I've got a good network of people who work in housing. Do I have a good network of people who work in finance and development? Probably not so much. And I can say now that I have a better one because of the people that I've made acquaintances with and I've made, well, hopefully friendships with. And I just think that it's I just don't think it can underestimate it when you come together with a group of people, you know, what you can achieve. So yeah, I really, just for me, that is a massive takeaway. And as I said to you, I know there's people who will be there if I have anything I need in future. And yeah, I just it was a massive thing. I can't really underestimate really how that's kind of taught me so much and led to so much kind of reflection and development about working with other people.
And what's been really interesting for me as well, working with you as a group, is actually to see that evolve over the period of time, and to see how you're building that relationship and how you're building that trust collectively together, and how powerful that is. And when you're talking about the group of individuals you're working with, how that's clearly lighting you up as you're about it there. So that part of that program, the program has been a massive part, is bringing people together from different disciplines, from different organisations, who have got relationships now, from what people have told me, that are going to continue far beyond the end of the programme.
Yeah, definitely.
So final question from me, Steph, for you is, what would you say has been the biggest surprise for you from the programme?
So I think a couple of things. I think, and I talked about the kind of the planning and shaping the course. I think one thing really early on that I was a bit worried about was how much duplication there'd be with other courses, and other tools that you've used, etc. Because as I said, I've been on lots of training. So for me, I was like, oh, okay, that was a worry, because as I said, it is an investment. It's really important. So I think, and when I had the conversations early on with Greenacre and yourselves, and I talked to you, and I talked about what I wanted to get out of it. I don't think we talked specific tools. We didn't go that in depth. We didn't think about the context that in depth, but it was more higher level about what I wanted to get out of it. So I think actually kind of going through it, I was, was there a point where actually I was going to do something that I'd done before, and I think that's natural. But I was really surprised. Apart from one video, there wasn't anything that I'd done before. The content was all new and it was all different. And I talked about the Facet 5 and how useful that is. But it was all different. And I guess I was just really surprised by that. And I know that wasn't the same for maybe everyone on the course. But for me, there were tools and content that I just hadn't seen before. So I was surprised by that. And then the second thing was, I think at the start I was quite concerned because it is in the East. I was quite concerned, would it be lots of people that I already know? And that's not to say I know loads of people, but I know quite a few people, and social media, etc., makes you link up with people so easily these days. And I knew quite a lot of people, and I've worked in the East for quite a long time. So I was like, oh, am I gonna meet loads of new people, or am I gonna meet people that I already know? And it was really important for me. As I said, it was one of my first kind of things that I really needed to develop myself, was to be around people that I didn't know, and come out of my comfort zone. So I think for me, that was really surprising. I knew a few faces in the room, or I knew a few names, and but nobody there was nobody at all that I knew really well. There were organisations, etc., that I recognised, but yeah. So I was surprised when I came into the room that day. We met up very early on, before the pandemic started. When I came into the room that day, I was really surprised and a little bit nervous, because actually I was like, wow. I think there was one person that I knew, but I didn't know them really well. I just met them at a couple of events. But other than that, there wasn't, and I was really surprised, because I just didn't necessarily think that would be the case. But I guess that was also an indicator for me really early on that actually this is going to be a bit different, because already already you're out of your comfort zone. Already there are people here you don't know. And when we went around the room to talk about what we did and the areas that we worked in, it's very clear from that moment on that I wasn't sitting with 14 other housing managers, or heads of housing, and that there were a variety of people around the room, working in different areas of housing. So I think at that moment I thought, yeah, I'm definitely going to learn something here. And yeah, I guess there were bigger surprises for me, and just the relationships that I built. And let's go on to talk about the people that I've worked with. I've worked really closely with a small group over a year, and I guess I am surprised at how that relationship's developed, and how that there will always be people that I'll be in touch with. And I guess I didn't expect that. I expected that I'd do a course, as you do, you meet people. Did I expect at the end that there would be people that I would never lose touch with? No, I probably didn't, because life gets in the way. But that won't be the case. I know that now. So yeah, huge surprises. Just a really worthwhile 12 months of my life, and I'm just glad that I made the decision to do it, because it was right for me, and it won't be right for everyone. But I think as long as you know what you want, and you're not afraid to have those conversations early on, I don't see how anyone can't really get out of it what I've got out of it. But yeah, no. So yeah, just a huge thanks to all of you at Greenacre for making it a really, I guess, special 12 months in a difficult 12 months.
Well, thank you, Steph. And it's been amazing to work with you and the participants on the programme. It genuinely has been an absolute pleasure for me as well, from a personal perspective, and a real delight to have you as part of the programme. And it's, it makes everything that I do feel so worthwhile when I talk to people who are telling me that they've built relationships that are going to continue way beyond the programme, potentially for the rest of your career, that you've learned things that have been new and have really stretched you out of your comfort zone. So that's absolutely amazing from my perspective too. So thank you so much for being a part of the programme and choosing Eastern Leaders. And I'm really excited to continue, I'm sure, our relationship too as we move forward into the future. So thank you so much, Steph.
Thank you, Vicki.